Welcome to a special three-part series on the future of work. In part one, I talk with the founders of Benchon and Talentvine, which have both built platforms that deal with the workforce of the future, which enables businesses, both large and small, to take advantage of the changes that are coming.
My name is Aidan Vocolo, and here you will find business strategies, tips, and tactics that you can incorporate not only in your own venture, but your life, to help you simplify and strategically grow, scaling up the impact you are having in this world. Listen as I talk to creators, innovators, and game changers on what it takes to build an impactful business, uncovering their insights, strategies, and tips to help you increase profitability and develop a thriving team culture. Welcome to the Stories Behind the Grind podcast.
Justin and Tim, thanks for coming on the Stories Behind the Grind podcast. It's great to have you on this special three-part series on the future of work.
Thanks for having us, Aidan.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Justin, you're the founder of Talentvine, which is an online platform that allows employers to hire the best talent from a pool of recruiters. And in just a few short years, you have over 350 top employers on the platform and over 175 recruitment specialists. And Tim, you're the founder of Benchon, which allows organizations to smooth out the demands of the business cycle, maximizing employee productivity. And you're actually a world-first business-only sharing economy platform. So thank you again both for coming on the show.
No, sure. Absolute pleasure. Yeah, looking forward to sharing that. It's not all doom and gloom. So
yeah, that's right. The future is bright, people.
Yeah,
for sure. Justin, can you explain how Talentvine came about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had actually never been a recruiter before in my life. So I came from a background of where I was selling psychometric testing. So I was working closely with employers and recruiters on both sides. And I just realized that there was really quite a disconnect, the lack of trust. And I just figured that there had to be a better way to be able to do this. So, I had a look at what was being done, and us entrepreneurs foolishly seem to think, we can do this better. And so that's how I kind of got started along this journey. And that was about 4 years ago. And, certainly what I initially wanted to be able to do was just give employers the clarity and see who the best recruiters are. I foolishly thought all that they wanted to do was work with the cheapest recruiters. So kind of went down that rabbit hole for a couple of years, failing dismally. And then I realized that it's got to be a much more of a data play. And by using that and using those kind of metrics and performance data can provide a much better way to connect employees to the most suitable recruiters. And that's certainly how the platform has evolved over those couple of years to be a bit more of a vendor management platform that gives employers the insights into who the top recruiters are, the work that they're doing, and by doing so, it makes it a lot easier for them to hire great talent.
Wonderful. Tim, what prompted you to start Benchon? What's a bit of the story behind that?
Yeah, it's a strange story. I was actually an army major, and I hurt my back after Afghanistan. So I decided I needed another profession other than soldiering. So I did a couple of master's degrees and went into defense project management, where I sort of got a glimpse of how government engages with industry. And then I jumped out into industry and worked as director of strategy and business development for a US aerospace engineering firm. And I think it was because I had a military background and not an industry background that when I came into industry, I was looking at it from fresh eyes, and I saw the problem of peaks and troughs in industry. You've either got too much work on or not enough. And I started to meet so many capable, confident, professionals that were losing their jobs. And I was like, how could anyone have let you go? I mean, you're amazing. And they were like, well, the project ended and they didn't have anything for me. That didn't make sense, right? And then I started then to meet a whole bunch of people who had their own businesses that ended up shutting down. And I was like, but you were doing amazing things. And they said, well, we just had a bit of a lull and there wasn't enough projects on and we ran out of money. So none of that sat well with me. And then I saw this one situation where a company had to lose 3 really amazing staff and a massive government contract simply because there was a 2-month delay in it and they had to let go of the staff, which means they then didn't have the people to win the contract. And it wasn't until someone in industry said to me, well, that's just the way industry is, mate. There's peaks and troughs, and we hope to survive long enough through the troughs to get back to the peaks, that I just sort of went, well, that doesn't make sense. So I realized that what it came down to was about visibility. The companies that needed the talent didn't know where it was, and the companies that had the talent didn't know where the contracts were. So that's when we came up with the idea of Benchon, and which matches up companies that have a demand for specialist support with the companies that have the excess capacity to do it. So yeah, I quit my job and sold my house and put everything on the line and started Benchon.
Such an important gap in the market. And you sort of asked the question, why didn't anyone think about this before? About sort of matching the supply and demand issue in the talent space.
Well, interestingly enough, a number of big companies had tried it because they recognized the problem. But the problem was that they didn't realize that you needed to be an unbiased third party in order to get a market-wide network, because all of their competitors were never going to use their platforms. So it wasn't until someone who came in that had no skin in the game that said, look, I don't care who wins the work, I just want to match it up, that it started to work.
It's such a good point that you make that. I think just being that agnostic player in this space is just so important.
Yeah, 100%. And people don't put enough credit in that. They just think, the big companies with the big money will do it. But if you're a consulting company and you're trying to set up a platform to match companies to work, I mean, all of your competitors are not going to use it, and all of the companies that they normally work with aren't going to use it, which means you've cut 3/4 of the market. So therefore, your network effect, which is really the benefit of the technology platforms that are coming out now, which are the massive network effect of being able to link up everybody, it doesn't work. And that's where the true power is.
Yeah, how important is having that network element to your platforms, both yourself and Justin? What emphasis do you place on having that, I guess, interconnectivity and network effect?
Well, it's everything, right? That's the exciting part about the platform generation that we're in, which is everyone can be linked and everyone's demand can meet everyone else's supply. And it can be done across cultural boundaries, cross industry boundaries, cross geographical boundaries. I mean, without that, it's simply just a software program.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe the same thing. That network is everything. Thousands of candidates out there who are being placed in roles who don't even realize that we exist. And that, we were involved in the back end. And, you've got employers who are able to now, hire talent by being able to piggyback off the time and the effort that other employers have already, put into finding those similar candidates as well. So, and it all comes down to network. And that's the beautiful thing as well, that I love what we're able to build here is that we're providing these ratings and these metrics and everything on these small recruiters that would never have otherwise had the opportunity to work with the likes of Queensland Government and Optus and clients like that. But, because they're able to do great work out there on their own and we can actually show that in a clear digital way, it means that they can, compete against the big businesses and be able to win work that they wouldn't otherwise have had the opportunity to get involved with. So yeah, it all comes down to networks.
Thanks both for sharing. It's I guess so important these days with the internet. Everyone can be connected with everyone theoretically, really. And we're only, you're only a couple of steps away from knowing anyone in the world. And I think
it used to be 6 degrees of separation. It's not that anymore. It's 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's not many at all. So it's really fascinating to see how the world's evolved in a relatively short amount of time, and how you both are sort of capitalizing on this unique opportunity out there.
Yeah,
we're trying, Aidan. We're trying.
Yeah,
foolishly.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
So I guess the reason I've got you both on is there's been a lot of talk recently about the future of work, and wanted to talk about it both from a business and later on in this 3-part series, an individual perspective as well. I guess from my end, what I found is the current discussions have really just centered around automation with a lot of fear mongering. How robots are going to take our jobs, or how, we're transforming to a gig-based economy where everyone's going to be a freelancer. So there's a lot of fear out there at the moment that's being propagated around across the social networks. But before we get into the juicy details and I guess shed some light on the future of work and how it actually can be a bit more of a brighter future than what's being portrayed, what does the future of work mean for you?
Do you want to start, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to. So look, I think it really comes down to what the impact is going to have on our daily lives, on how we interact with our teams, how we interact with our customers, and how that's going to evolve what we refer to as work. So in quite a broad sense, I think that comes down to, 2 things. So the impact of that AI is going to have, and Aidan, like you mentioned, obviously the, automation. So I think a big thing as well that we're going to see as well. And for me, what I see the future of work, and, like you said, there's a lot of that, fear around. I'm super excited and I'm pumped, and I think it's going to really evolve what the workforce looks like and what the average job is going to look like, right? And I think where that's going to really come down to is that people are going to enjoy their jobs a lot more. You're going to be able to work remotely, so you can do the school run, or you can go for your, do your swim class in the mornings before work and spend more time with your family and those you love, and work from places that you enjoy. You can share jobs with other people. You can outsource to, those menial tasks of, if that's something that automation can't take over. And it's just going to allow you to focus on the things you're good at, what really adds value. And, you look at the stats and you look at the numbers, and the AI and the automation is going to keep creating more jobs. And I think it's going to create more jobs, and it's going to eliminate, if all you really do is, work in a plant or, a very kind of unskilled role, then it might not be as rosy, because I think there are a lot of kind of positions that will be taken. But, there's one of the examples that I was, keen to talk about, and that's actually from my own team, and how, the future of work is really evolving. I mean, our CTO is on the weekends, he's actually a yoga teacher as well. And so we've had a few times we're in the mornings, and, quite regularly, we might do a team motivation, or like a lunchtime, sorry, not a team motivation. Well, I hope that happens anyway. But a team meditation, and there's mornings when we've gone up onto the roof and all done like yoga and that together. And you know what? We fire as a team after that. Everyone's focused. They loving what they're doing. And if there's a bit of automation that can take a quarter out of James's job, and actually free up his time to be able to do things like that, that to me is a great success. And he's going to enjoy that, and everyone's going to see so many more benefits from that. So I think that's an example that I see as the future of work. But yeah, it certainly just comes down to the impact of technology and how that can help us to do more meaningful stuff.
Yeah, look, I agree. I mean, to me, it's characterized by we're challenging the norms of historical work. And that's not a bad thing. It only becomes a bad thing because, only 38% of people actually embrace change. That's why there's so much fear out there, because things are changing, but that can be a great thing. The concept of the job is changing. Like Justin said, you don't have to have a 9-to-5 job, or just a 9-to-5 job. You don't have to follow the templates that have been set in the past. I remember when I left school, it was, you finish grade 12, you just choose your uni degree, which was like, I need to now choose the career that I'm going in for the rest of my life. You do that for the next 3 years after school, and then you go into your career, and that's where you then make your way. There's so much more flexibility now. Human beings are not one size fits all. Everyone has different desires, different ambitions, different life scenarios. Some people have kids, some people have, parents they need to look after. Like, everyone needs a completely different situation. And what we're seeing is the fact that society is now embracing that and allowing people to operate the way that they need to. So we know that we need to find ways to be more efficient, be more agile, be more cost effective, be more collaborative. And now with this technology, that's allowing us to do that. And, right from your phone, you can secure yourself a job, or you can work from home, or you can, work on the go while you're traveling. It is fast moving. Like, the future work will be fast moving, and there will be constant change. But that doesn't mean it's going to be scary. It just means it's different. It's different to what our parents did and what their parents did. So look, there'll be new business models. There'll be new processes. There'll be new skills that are required. There'll be new ways of working. But if you embrace that change, then you will develop a future that is more suited to you.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely the case that the whole, marketplace and industry is really changing. And every decade the rate of change, or every year really, but the rate of change increases. So I guess now we're seeing a situation where a generation above, or, 2 generations above, is drastically different to the workforce that's coming through. Your Gen Ys, your Gen Zs, your millennials coming through the marketplace are sort of demanding roles that are more suited to where they are at their stage in life. So I guess I can see from what you're both talking about, instead of an individual conforming to a job, it's almost like the job will conform to the individual to match where they are in certain stages of life. Does that sound sort of right to you guys?
Yeah, well, that's right. And that people can choose to go down a path that suits their way of life, because there are more options. And some people get scared when they get more options. They get, decision paralysis. Everything is now, it's becoming easier. If you look at Justin's platform and my platform, it's much easier to find people and for talent mobility. And that's just 2 examples. Everything is becoming easier to choose the way that suits you best.
Yeah, it's very true. And, the younger people coming through, that's what they demand, right? They want to be doing meaningful work. They want to feel that they can, resonate with the vision of an organization that they're a part of as well. But, they can pick and choose. They know what their strengths are much more than us, the older generations that are out there. And, with this comes that that nature of collaboration, right? And I think there's still a lot of work and a lot of training for, business leaders and us to be able to do at the same time. When you have two team members who can say, you know what, I'm not that good at that one task, but you're pretty good at that. And this is what I'm good at, and I can help you there. And they can collaborate and they can share roles and they can do that and work together for the common good. Then that's how organizations are going to, lead, as opposed to those that are going to, fall by the wayside.
Yeah. In regards to automation taking our jobs and all that, I'll just give you one anecdote. And this is how I've characterized, how I see the automation and how it's going to affect us. And this was from my COO. My tech team said when we were completing the automation on our platform, they were saying, look, we're automating you. How are you going to feel when this platform does pretty much all of your job? And her response was perfect. I'll never forget it. She said, well, I've spent the last 20 years training myself to think like a machine so I could be efficient enough to do my job. And now you guys have built a machine that does my job. I'm now going to spend the rest of my career learning how to work like a human. And she just said it offhandedly, but I thought it was pretty profound. We spend all this time trying to be so efficient and so process driven like machines. And if machines take that over, okay, what do we do now? We can focus on being human and doing all of that creative human type stuff that we've been neglecting for decades.
I was going to ask, what does working like a human look like?
Well, that's the question, right? That's the question that we all have to come to terms with. But if you look in your daily work, what are the things like relationship development, client support, strategic and complex thinking? There's a multitude of things that we do better as humans, engaging, stakeholder engagement, communication,
empathy, trust, vision. Yeah.
Yeah. All of these things that make business work, but we've just had to do those on the side when we had time. Now we can actually focus on that. Like business is historically a relationship driven entity. So now we can focus on those relationships and we can improve that and make business better and more enjoyable and more personable, which is, I think, what we're all craving.
Exactly. That's where that enjoyment will come from as well. Like if you look at, 10 years ago or, probably a little bit longer than that before you could go and look at Google reviews or get those kind of insights online, the role, where buyers can actually now inform themselves before making a purchasing decision. You used to have a salesman and their job was just to sit there and bang out 50 cold calls per day. And, no, there's no joy in that being on either side of that phone call, right? But what's the role now of a salesman? How is that going to evolve, as that automation and all the data and all the accuracy around the kind of products is available online? People will go on, they'll do their own research and they'll find something. And once they do that, they'll then evolve someone in that traditional sales role who will help them. They will use them because they have the empathy, they have the trust. They can, provide creativity to help them, nurture them through that kind of buying process. And those are the aspects that both the buyer and that business and that salesperson is going to really enjoy due to, automation and data taking the ugly part away from it.
And I guess it's no different to when computers came on the market and how that transformed the whole marketplace and industry. How, people thought they were going to lose their jobs because the computer was going to be able to automate things. So I guess this is just the next iteration in, humans becoming more human and developing that trust. And like you said, developing the empathy and having that real deep connection with people, connecting people with people, which humans can do best.
Well, actually, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and what you see is if there's some form of technology that's going to make your personal life better, then everyone's excited about it. When the iPhone came out, everyone was excited. They weren't fearful of the fact that they no longer have to, use the round dial phones. If you're old enough to remember those, it was more like, oh, look at all the things that I can do personally now. But then if you go into work and they say, we're going to implement this new technology, which is going to help you do your job, people freak out. Oh my God, everything's changing. I don't have the processes to follow. So why is it that technology that affects us personally is so exciting, yet technology that improves our business is so terrifying? I still haven't worked that out.
What do you think business owners can do to, soften the blow or to communicate change more effectively to their employees?
It needs to be a well-planned strategy. And we had this experience where a company tried to implement it. They used authoritative tactics, like this is happening, you're going to do it whether you like it or not, it's going to improve your life. And they had constant fighting and feedback. People saying we're not doing it. Whereas if you take them on the journey and you use change management and communicate exactly the benefits and take them along with you on that journey of why you went to that point and why you're making that business decision, then people will follow you.
Yeah, exactly. And having that kind of that clear vision around what the actual goal is. So if you think of like an HR consultant, right, and working internally for a large organization, their goal is to attract and retain great talent. If there's now amazing kind of software and automation that helps them be able to hire people a lot easier, they shouldn't be fearful that, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job because, these machines will be able to recruit people, which is, something that used to take me months to be able to do. Suddenly they have a lot more time on their hands that they can then go and spend time with the employees in that organization and working with them and building a better workplace for them, so that they can retain that talent. And at the end of the day, that's how the organization is going to benefit. So, looking at those bits of software and technology and seeing that as, that's part of you. You have the ability to utilize that and not be fearful of it. And that's going to help your job and the organization get there faster.
Actually, Justin, I'm sorry to cut you off, Aidan.
That's right.
I have a point that I really want Justin's opinion on, because I was talking about this with someone the other day, and they said, particularly in recruitment, in the past when it was all manual, and it did take months to fill a position, it was almost like recruiters were just order takers. They'd be given an order, fill this position, and then they would go out and they would find that position and put them in. Whereas now with the technology and the different talent pools that they have and the technology that speeds up the matches, they can now take a much more involved, approach to it and work out, okay, well, let's not just fill an order. What's the best way to fill this? Do we fill this with a permanent? Do we fill it with a contractor? Do we fill it with a gig? Do we look at alternate workforces? How do I make sure that they've got the best cultural fit? Like all these additional things that they didn't have time for before, they can now become an enhancer of the recruitment industry rather than just filling a job.
Exactly. And that's why those roles have evolved and they now become organizational development consultants within within the company and, leadership coaches and that, as opposed to where they're just traditionally putting it out on Seek, doing some shortlisting, doing 20 telephone interviews and then sending the top 3 candidates through to the hiring manager, right? That can be automated and they can add so much more value. And, that creativity and I think you did a great job of listing that there, Tim, that collaboration of working with different parts of the business to understand who they need, what type of roles they need, and adding value there instead. And that's the future of work as it evolves.
Yeah, I can definitely see people becoming more specialized and going deeper into their sort of area of expertise to find, what role and responsibilities best suit their natural skill sets. And a lot of people sort of going all in on that angle, basically, instead of being a generalist. I can definitely see people in the future, or even now really, starting to take more specialized roles so that you've got, I can imagine, a workforce where you might be called the same thing, but you've got these, differing levels of expertise and what you can offer, because you've got the time to go deep and you don't have to worry about all this transactional work that can be automated or definitely have a lot of load for you.
Absolutely. And then what happens is an individual, they find their niche, they find their speciality, and then they realize, actually, you know what, I'm actually pretty damn good at this. They end up leaving an organization. They can go out on their own, work from Bali, work from wherever they want, and be able to freelance and be able to offer that specific bit of clarity and bit of knowledge that they've been able to hone in on to multiple, organizations at any one time as well. And more people get to benefit from what they know.
And actually, we're seeing that not only for the individual. I'm actually, because I'm in a business to business, environment, we're seeing that same trend for businesses where businesses can now use platforms to win the work that they need. So they don't need to be, out, hitting the pavement and, constantly out talking to people. They can focus in and create a small business that is focused on a niche. They can develop a truly niche capability because they know that in the downtimes, they'll be able to win the work that they need to keep themselves going. And they don't need to be a generalist just to win any contract that comes through the door. They can be a specialist project management firm or a systems engineering firm or a logistics firm or software development firm, whatever it is. They can say, this is our segment and we're going to focus in on this, and all of our personal effort will be on building that niche. And then when, times are tough or the work's not coming in, we will get thrown through these platforms, these contracts that we can put our people on to keep ourselves afloat while we wait for the next contract that suits our niche. It is happening on all levels.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I guess what happens at the individual level can then, scale up, and definitely, like you said, you can definitely have these specialized businesses that just focus on doing one thing, but doing it exceptionally well. And you can just imagine the multiplier effect then that's going to happen on the economy, as you've got these specialist individuals working in their specialist firms delivering a specific result, not having to worry about doing things that they're not great at, but being able to do things that they're exceptional at. You can just imagine the multiplier effect, not only in Australia, but throughout the world as well, when you can win work overseas and you're not limited by geographic limitations.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's about like being interconnected. You asked that question before, like, why is the network so important? The network is so important because you now have a much larger market to put your niche capability into and to meet other people's very specific demands. Whereas before it was only limited to who was in your geographical region or who was in your local network, which meant that you had to take whatever work you needed to.
Why else should small businesses be excited about the future of work? Obviously, specializing in a niche and being able to deliver something at a high quality is important. What are some other things that I guess small business owners should be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can, give a first-hand experience on that just with, for example, like the users on Talentfind. You've got these very small, we've got a one-man band recruitment agency that's just placed, a couple of, defense engineers for a massive organization. He would have never had the opportunity to be able to work with someone like that. But, he's done great work elsewhere. We're placed in similar roles, and he was able to show that data through the platform and win that. So with the growth of the platforms, especially the kind of network marketplaces out there, it's given them a lot more opportunity to win that work. It could be a stay-at-home mum who just wants to do some, it could be, accounting or bookkeeping or hairdressing on the side. And there's platforms like Airtasker and that they can then utilize and be able to kind of find and win more work a lot easier as well. But I think one of the most exciting things for small business owners is I think it's going to be a rise of, like the David versus Goliath. And monopolies aside and the Googles and that of the world, ignoring those ones. But otherwise, the small guys can now take on, the big guys a lot easier. It's, from hosting and operation costs and that are a lot lower. So, they can stay lean, they can scale a lot faster. You've got anyone out there has got access to so much information online, whether it's, through Lynda or YouTube or anything like that as well. So they can learn a lot quicker. There's online tutorials and everything. So you can upskill a lot faster without having to go and, engage with Deloitte on a 6-figure, consulting project. There's people that can get up to speed on what's required a lot faster and be able to do so from anywhere in the world. And that's something that the small guys are going to be able to do. And yeah, I'm really excited. And it's part of our vision and something that we love at our businesses, that we're a catalyst for that as well.
Yeah, you're right. And anyone who's actually worked with an enterprise will know that they move at a glacial pace. Small businesses are agile. They make decisions fast. Like, you can talk directly to the managing director. They can make a decision and go, we're doing that. Whereas the bureaucracy that surrounds these huge corporations slows them down to a point where they really only suit these large mega programs from government and things like that. And you're right in the sense that I love the David and Goliath comment you made, because we see that with BenchOn, because BenchOn allows companies to win work based off the quality of their people, not the size of their PR machine or the size of their sales department or, anything else. It links directly to, well, do you have the best person at the best price for the job? Which means small businesses are competing on the same level as these large companies. And so they can carve out their own space in the market and not worry about being left behind and crushed by these large organizations.
Do you think the bureaucracy in large enterprises or large organizations will need to become more agile? Do you see the enterprises having to adopt a quicker methodology to embrace what the future of work is going to give them?
They can't. You look at the stuff going on in the news about Facebook and Google. They have massive reputations that any one small decision or any one misstep has global impacts. that they splash across the news because people are interested in how these corporations do things. So they have to be very, very specific about how they act. Whereas small business has still got the, anonymity almost, where they can make mistakes. They can be agile. They can fail and then just go, okay, well, that failed. Let's move on to something else. And they can quickly recover. Whereas let's say a big four bank turns around and goes, right, we're going all in on this. And then in a month it fails. Like, that's a massive PR nightmare in the media. They have to have these steps in place. So what I think it'll see is everyone will just it'll drift. There will be certain criteria that require a large enterprise with their corporate governance. And then there will be others where people want agility and they want fast thinking and they want fast responses. And that's where the small to medium businesses will come through.
And I think, and they realize that they are, so tied up with the bureaucracy and that they move so slow. So you do see a lot of corporates now do have innovation hubs. And, for example, like I remember a few corporates used to have teams that, used to go and spend a month working in places like River City Labs, just learning to be a lot more agile and feeding off the kind of startup feeling and seeing what they can take from that kind of startup environment to actually bring back into the organization. So now whether that's been received when they come back to the big corporates and whether they are embracing any of that new way of thinking is a completely different story and not something that I have any first-hand experience that I can comment on. But they do realize that they have to change. Otherwise, they are going to lose and continue to lose ground to the smaller, faster, agile players that are out there.
What I have seen work well, because, with corporates, they're innovation hubs. Some of them can just be, they're useless. They're just there so a company can say, well, we've got an innovation department, because they're not enabling them. But what I have seen starting to come about is corporates using a sandbox theory where they can put something into an enclosed area that has limited potential to damage the brand, and they can test it out fast. And then if it works, then implement it at a higher level. And I've seen that work quite well. And so the companies that are actually employing that tactic is working. But, we've all heard the horror stories of, people going through corporate innovation. And then at the end of it, they go, yep, great. I like your ideas. I'm going to merge all those three in because that fits best in our current process. And innovation is change. Innovation is changing your current process, and that hurts and it takes effort, but at the same time, it's necessary.
Yeah, it's almost like you need two processes, one for sort of business as usual and another one with the different sort of gatekeepers for your more innovative projects.
Yeah.
On that note, what can business owners do now to prepare themselves and their employees for the future of work?
One of the key trends of the future of work, and this is undeniable, is we need to develop a culture of lifelong learning. People need to realize that it's not about you do a degree and then that's it and you're good for the rest of your career and the rest of it will be on the job training. You need constant learning. And that shouldn't be seen as a burden. It should be seen as adding more feathers to your bow or strings to your bow or whatever that was. We need to move to a skills-based industry, where people aren't seen by their job title. They're seen by the amalgamation of all of their skills. And the only way to do that is, there's a number of requirements there. There is a requirement for the government and industry bodies to start doing some analysis on how skills are changing and what's required. And that needs to be communicated to the public. And that hasn't happened yet. Actually, I saw Anthony Albanese in the news this morning saying that that's exactly what he wants to do. And he wants to set up a hub for the future work that focuses on what are the skills that we're going to need and how do we communicate that to the public. So that was a good step. But businesses, and I heard this the other day where a good idea is for businesses to have learning periods built into the weekly schedule. So it's not once a year you take a week off and you go do a course and that's your learning for the year. Once a week, people are given 2 or 3 hours to continually learn and improve themselves, either through short courses, self-learning, through a scheduled, some sort of do it in your own time type of university degree or something like that. But everyone needs to get used to the fact that we cannot stop learning, because if you do, you'll get left behind. Things are changing so fast. So my suggestion is for business owners that what they need to be doing is embracing that learning culture, putting it into their business. And you don't even need to set like structured learning. You allow employees to go where their interests are and to learn what they're good at and what they enjoy, and allow them to drive that, and then take the benefit of their passion and implement it in your business where appropriate.
Yeah, that's a great point. And think of what business owners can do to embrace this. I think if you think of the analogy, I think of if you've got a dam with a few and it's starting to flood, a river's starting to flood, and you're there panicking, you're trying to plug all these kind of holes in, and everything starts to kind of flood. You got to accept the fact that change is coming, right? And innovation is bringing this, and looking at it in a positive way. So realizing you've just got to almost push down the dam walls and just go with the flow, and realize that's happening. And there's a lot of learning that business owners need to do, and I need to do that myself as well, right? It's realizing, with the future of work, you're going to have remote teams. You're going to have teams who are going to want to leave the office at 3:00, and it's taken me some practice as well. I've sat there and when the team packing up and leaving at 3:00, and at first I'd be like, what the hell? This is ridiculous. Our day finishes at 5:30. But then you realize that no, this is how things are now changing, and they go home and they spend time with their family and their kids, and they're back online, and they're doing some very productive work between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. And this is just how things are changing. So I think we need to be open to that. We need to be trusting of our employees, giving them the opportunities to learn. Like Tim said, when you look at millennials, what is the most important things that they're looking for their jobs in this day and age? And it's learning and development, and the ability for them to, be able to progress in their own skill sets as well. So giving them people those opportunities and trusting them that they're going to, to do what's expected of them as well.
Tim, Justin, thank you for those really, really important steps and tips for business owners, what they can be doing now. I love your focus on, or the emphasis really on learning and development being not just a once-off or every quarter, but inbuilt into how businesses operated, into businesses as usual, and sort of building that momentum and skilling up employees, but giving employees also the free rein to invest in skill sets that they have a passionate interest in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I recommend any of your listeners look up Deloitte's Human Capital Trends Report 2019. It does talk about what trends are coming in the future of work, and learning is number one. Number two is the employee experience. That takes into account employees wanting fulfilling work, as well as, the recruitment right through to the end. Talent mobility, leadership, like it goes through all of the current trends, and it sort of follows exactly what Justin and I've been saying.
Yeah, well, I'll include a link to that in the show notes, so people who are listening can check that report out in full and get the lowdown on what's going to happen in the future, or in the coming years.
Yeah, perfect.
Justin, Tim, thanks again for coming on part one of the series. I'm excited to bring you both back on in part 3, where we're going to have a roundtable discussion and sort of have a free-for-all chat on where it's all going. But look, thanks for being part of part 1.
Thank you very much for having us. Yeah, I very much appreciated it, and love what you're doing as well. So keep it up.
Yeah, me too. And I can't wait for part 3. It's going to be awesome. All different platforms on the one podcast trying to speak over each other. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be fun for sure. It's going to be sure to listen out to that one. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, it's going to be interesting to go deep and embrace where it's all going. But look, thanks again, and talk to you both soon.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Adam.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Stories Behind the Grind. Please share the podcast, and if you're not already subscribed, be sure to do that right now. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could do me a quick favor and rate and review the podcast. This lets the platform know that I'm doing something right and people like the content. It'd be a huge help, and I'd be really, really grateful if you could. Until next time.